Welcome to the Brook Hill podcast. Today we have the Jordan Imhoff on the podcast, alumni. Our live audience already loves you.
I love it.
And so Jordan Imhoff was a camper for 25 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I might have the record. I don't know.
You probably do. The way that I got to know Jordan was that kid is back again.
that guy's here.
That's right. And we were small enough as a camp that, you know, when you had like 200, 250 campers, someone that came back, it was like, oh, yeah, he's back. And almost treated him like a counselor. Hey, Jordan, you know where that is. Go grab that for us. You know,
you can go get that. Yeah.
That's right. And my biggest memory of you was you on the drums, and we'll get into that later. Yeah. But Jordan now lives up in Chicago-ish.
Yeah, so technically a Chicago suburb, but is the furthest suburb probably from Chicago. It's northwest suburbs, and it touches Wisconsin. So it's an hour and 50 minutes from Chicago, but it's still technically part of Chicagoland, Chicago metro area. Yeah.
And originally, you were from the Bayou down there.
And originally from New Orleans. So I gradually migrated to colder climates.
Yes.
I went from New Orleans to Arkansas to Virginia to Illinois. And now I actually enjoy winter, which I never thought I would.
I love that. And now you are a photographer. Was a videographer, now a photographer.
Yep. Yeah, so started with when I was like around 13. Wanted to do videography, directing. That was like, I loved movies, storytelling, visual storytelling especially. And then through, the dips and dives of life, ended up with photography and started a wedding photography business, doing wedding photography and family photography out in the Chicago area, and even more so now the Lake Geneva, Wisconsin area, because it's more laid back.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into all that. Can't wait. Little intro, little bio of who Jordan is. And but first, we're going to start with a game.
All right.
We're going to check your Brook Hill trivia here.
Ooh, okay.
And so, do we want to throw the leaderboard up just to see? Let's see where Jordan. No pressure.
Oh,
but you got like Lindsey Perry here.
Okay.
At 30, and then last year's camp mom at 34. So she had like a slight advantage because all she did was work with all the Brook Hill trivia. Okay, so here's the categories, and you can use all of them simultaneously. Like you can bounce around, but it's cabins. Okay, so Brook Hill cabins. Start naming guys and girls, right? You got songs, and it can be wagon, council ring, whatever, and then activities. And it can be old and new. It doesn't have to be current. Like, you can start naming whatever activities we used to have. We will accept all answers here as long as they're correct Brook Hill trivia.
Okay.
All right? So you got 3 categories. You have 30 seconds.
Oh, man. Time clock.
Time clock. That puts the pressure on it,
does.
which makes people not do well.
So.
All right. You may begin now.
Okay, so maybe I didn't follow. Just anything that comes to mind. Sorry. I thought something was gonna flash.
No.
Okay.
You name. That's a good call.
Category. Yeah.
You go and you can run back and forth. You just name as many.
Oh man.
We want you just to start. Just shotgun it. Throw it out there.
Okay.
All right. You ready? Go.
Okay. We'll go with cabins, I guess.
Yep.
So we got Broncos, Hackneys, Mustangs. Oh shoot. The pressure. I guess we'll jump over to the girls. T-Birds, Percherons, Lipizans. What else what other ones was I in? I don't know. I don't like the pressure. I'm not a pressure kind of guy.
I love it. Well, that was
Did I win? Did I win that one?
That was a valiant effort. We are going to say we're proud of you. That's what we're.
Listen, I don't do great with landmarks, so like I could go to the 4th cabin, and I would get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are no losers at Brook Hill, so
That's true.
So you are a winner, and you will go on a list, just not the one we usually show to everyone.
Not the big list, not the good list.
No, you're all good. So, man, how did you get to Brook Hill? What brought the Imhoff family to Brook Hill? When did your career here start? How did that work?
So I'm sure my mom would have a different recollection, but this might be accurate or not.
There's no doubt about that.
Right,
Karen
Karen knows the real facts.
That's right.
So from what I understand is we found Brook Hill through our good friends, the Janeses, who also, so I always came with my friend Tyler, and so Tyler's dad did embroidery for Brook Hill for all the merchandise and stuff during that era. So they would come up to drop off all the T-shirts and bring everything. We would go to camp, and that's kind of how I remember. I think that Miss Sylvia was the one who introduced my mom to Brook Hill through the women's seminars. Could be the other way around, but some form of that through the Janeses, we got connected to Brook Hill and the church and everything else. So that's my story.
That makes a lot of sense.
Answer.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I remember, my first introduction to your family was through Caitlin.
Okay. Yeah.
She was the oldest. She was coming through. She did tennis.
Yes.
I did tennis.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was one of my older campers, and then eventually became a junior counselor.
Yep. Right. She didn't get the full. I think she came in about midway through the Brook Hill years that you could come, and then went into being a counselor.
So you were third, fourth grade?
Yeah. So I was whatever the earliest.
Okay.
At that point, I don't know if it's changed what it was by age or by grade that you could come. So I was 7, 8-ish. Okay. I think. Yeah.
You remember any of your counselors' cabins?
So okay, funny story, right? So this is the gold. So we're dropping off my daughter Abigail to come to camp, and I look over and Sean and Caitlin are talking, and immediately I recognized them because through Facebook you stay connected with counselors and people that you probably would never recognize otherwise, but they kind of just stay because they pop up. So they're like, hey, come over here, come meet whoever. I was like, oh, Simon Knighton. So I was like, this is going to make us both feel very old. I'm pretty sure you were either my first or second senior counselor ever. So also with Keith DeSaulnier, who would always wear the cowboy hat.
Right.
So
from Lake Charles.
From Lake Charles, yeah. So it was either him or Keith, but one of the two. And yeah, I just small world, that dropping off at the same time. But yeah, so going way back to the 90s. Yeah, that's so just saw him.
Meg, did he look like a little kid going up to Simon? It was like
the red shirt shine never wears off.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. No, I feel the same way.
Right?
I played tennis with one of the old camp directors when I was a camper.
Yep.
And obviously he's my friend now, but still, there's still that's the guy, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
That's
completely.
incredible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that was a small, little connection of dropping off, which is also, I think, so fun for having done drop off for the first time. Like a fun aspect for the parents who are alumni. Like you're kind of looking around like, do I recognize anybody? Yeah.
And there was a bunch here on Monday.
Yeah.
There was at least 5 or 6 alumni that were here on Monday, and that's so fun.
Which ties into the legacy, right? You generation after generation after generation. And I remember when we were waiting in line to come and drop off, just saying it's so funny because I remember being a counselor and parents dropping off and they're like, oh, I came here and this was my cabin, and thinking at that point wow, they must be 40 right. And I'm 30, I'm about to be 36, and it's just okay, no, I'm there now. Yeah,
you're that guy.
I'm that guy.
That's right.
And it's kind of awesome.
So Brook Hill meant a lot to you. You loved it. Your parents didn't force you to be here. You were like, I want to go back.
No,
what was your experience like?
So I'll just very straight. Brook Hill is the most impactful thing in my life. I mean, by far. And it was the thing that, in that stage of life, those the middle school to high school years are just, hard to navigate sometimes. And in the area that I lived in New Orleans, it's a very spiritually tumultuous area, I would say. And you don't really know until you move away and you come back, but you can feel a different spiritual atmosphere in different pockets of it. And through that process, I just had a really hard time with school, finding direction, where I want to go, who I want to be. I would say I was aware and involved in church, but I didn't really get saved until I was 15, 16 years old, even though I had been coming to camp. I didn't have that moment of that's when I recognize there's a difference, there's a change. It took root. It wasn't just oh, I know the verbiage, I know, I can recognize something, but the consistency of coming so many times, I'm very thankful to my parents for them saying, you know what, we're not sure what to do with the environment that this is, so we're going to put them in an environment that we know is positive. And I know that was a good investment, and I know that was a heavy investment. You know, it's to be able to come. I want to say my last year before I was a JC, I came 6 weeks out of the 8 or something. Like my parents were just like, "You're going to be the all summer camper. We know it's a safe spot for you. We know that it's somewhere that produces good fruit, and we're going to make that, you know, investment, that sacrifice for you to be there." And it's by far the most impactful thing that they ever could have done. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But it really, I mean, spiderwebbed out into so many different areas, because from there, being a JC and then an AC, never actually became a senior counselor because I jumped over to High Point.
Sure.
I did, you know, High Point for 2 years. And then from there, I went to Applied Life, which was an extension of the church, which has then now morphed into Leaders Academy, right?
Right.
So just the vein that Brook Hill and the Christian Ministries Church in general has through my life is just, I mean, I couldn't even begin to connect all the different dots. And really not knowing what to do post-college. So growing up in New Orleans, Katrina happened. That moved us up here for my senior year of high school. And out of that, it kind of directed me, you know, God took something bad and turned it into, you know, something that was incredibly transformational in my life. And did 2 years at the college, and then from there discovered Regent University, which then I went in Virginia Beach. Regent University had a great film school, went there for film, ended up meeting my wife, who was in the theater program, because you've got to bring over, you know, the actors to come. Lots of time that we had to spend one-on-one, you know, actor, director.
That was just tough.
It was really tough.
You sacrificed
but, you know,
a lot
I did,
for that. Yeah.
You know, but worked out pretty good.
It did.
Yeah, and then from there, you know, it brought me to the Chicago area, which if you would have told me I would live in Illinois or in the Chicago area, I would have just laughed, because I would not like snow for, you know, 6 months out of the year. Wasn't going to be my life. But I love where we're at now. I love what we do and the freedom that it gives us to be able to homeschool our children. And I can really see the different parts of my journey that Brook Hill has had an effect on in getting us there. It was just really coming full circle, being able to bring my daughter for the first time and drop her off and let her know this special place, and also not trying to like fanboy out and just like
absolutely
put too much pressure on, like, this is going to be the greatest week of your life.
Right. Yeah. Let it be her natural
and
experience.
Let it be hers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I do see that. Sometimes some parents, they're like, you know, you will love this.
You're going to love this so much.
Okay, just let it just happen.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
I don't know if I did play it cool, but I was trying to play it cool.
You probably did.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good. So just to unpack that a little bit, I love something you said early on. You said, you know, as I was going to camp, I didn't necessarily follow the Lord, but I was in a good place. And you know, seeds were planted, even though maybe you didn't see them growing. They probably still were right in your life, in your heart.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, one of the things I tell the counselors, I said, sometimes we have to model Christ for them before they decide to accept him. And so, you know, we can't ever be Jesus for someone.
Yeah.
But I think we can be like, hey, you have a place where you can come to us, and then when you're ready, let us show you why you love us.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so when you were ready at the right time.
Yeah. You did, Brook Hill did the preparation of the soil, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the seeds were there, and eventually the fruit came.
That's right.
And I feel like that's in Christianity, that can be such a hard thing, because once you experience Christ and you have that in your life, like, I guess kind of like dropping my daughter off for camp, you don't want to fanboy out, right? You don't want to over push. And Brook Hill never over pushed.
Good.
And it just presented this life that was attainable, that was accessible, and eventually coming to a point in high school of, you know what, this is what is presented before me. This is an option that I have, and there's also this, you know, this fruit over here that I could partake in. So, and making that decision and saying, you know what, it's going to be hard. And I remember thinking my junior year of high school, like, this is going to be hard because I have this history with my friends and I don't want to lose my friends. but I am going to start taking a stand of these are my values, these are my principles, and these are the lines that I'm not going to cross. And having to do that while like, and hoping for acceptance from my friends, like that's going to be okay. But also having to come to terms with if that's not okay, these are my lines. And
that's not easy at 17.
No, it's not easy at 17. It's not easy at 36. It's,
sure.
It's, everybody wants acceptance.
Sure. Good.
So I think that showed me and in my life of how to represent Christ. And I think even with doing wedding photography, it's a way for us to present that on the wedding day, on the interactions, on the different phone calls of maybe they don't even know, that I am a Christian, but I'm going to present the kindness, the patience, the love, the understanding, and the different things to them. The fruit of the Spirit to them.
Hey, there's something different about them.
Yeah, so that they can experience that. Maybe they don't know what to call it, but maybe it can plant a seed that eventually they can put a name to it. Like Paul on Mars Hill pointing and like, you have all these things that say,
that's right.
But I can tell you who that God is.
That's right.
And I think that, that Jesus commands us to go and make disciples. He doesn't command us to go and change people's hearts. That's his job. That's what he does.
Good.
And if you can present Christ to them and they can accept Christ, then you can be there for them to help disciple.
I think we want to change people.
Yeah, because it's changed you and you're excited about it. Yeah.
Look,
absolutely.
This is what's happened to me. Now let me force you to have that change.
Right.
And that's not what happened to me.
Yeah. It's like we used to say mandatory fun, right? Like
that's it.
It's that. Yeah, I want you to have that.
Here's what's going on in my life. Now I want to make that go on in your life. And that's not the way it happened for me. Right. I decided on my own terms.
Yep.
And it's funny, and even with our kids or whatever, it's like I want this now.
Yeah.
For them.
Yep.
It's like that's just not how it works, and isn't that difficult? Don't you find that difficult as a parent, as a leader?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if you really want it to be actual fruit and actual take root, it has to be a personal decision. And that's, we know that in our minds and in our hearts. Like,
that's right.
It's a personal relationship. It's a personal decision. But because it's something that is so special to you, that is such a big part of your life, you can be a little overzealous, whether being a parent, being a friend, being, a mentor, whatever it is, that's the hardest part about having any kind of role of, being a role model in any capacity.
As a young leader, I think that's what I struggled with the most, was wanting to bring change to someone's life instead of just being in someone's life, right? Just, relationship versus correcting behavior, right? Creating relationship versus correcting behavior. And I think that creating relationship is so much more important as a mentor than correcting behavior. And it doesn't mean that you don't say, hey, I was noticing this,
right?
Might want to think about it's not, not doing that.
Right.
But if you're always like correcting, and that's what I found myself doing because I feel like that was what the conviction of my life, I was correcting behavior in my own life.
Yep.
And then I started putting that on other people and I was like, you know what, that's not getting the results I'm wanting.
Yeah.
You know, and then you become a parent. Like you've learned that lesson as a young leader. Then you become a parent. You have to learn that lesson all over again.
Yeah, and even more so because it's not. There's no separation, right? There's no break. You don't like. I'm not going to see you for a month, 2 months. Right. I'll see you next year. It's every single day, and you have to like. Okay, all right.
There's no breaks in parenting.
There's no breaks. Yeah.
we gotta rethink that. There's gotta be some breaks in parenting. No.
How can we work that in?
That's right. I love that. You know what? I think something to unpack in as you were telling kind of your story there, one of the things that I remember, so Katrina, you talked about this. I don't know if they heard this, but you moved up here for your senior year of high school.
Correct.
Katrina, so your junior year, you were just saying you started to step up, have standards. I'm going to take a stand.
Yep.
So you're starting to become this man in a difficult, a man of God in a difficult area.
Yep.
And then boom, Katrina hits and just uproots your entire life.
Completely. Yep.
And you move up here.
And, the first reaction to something like that is like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? This is, completely life altering. It turns everything upside down. And it only took really a month or so to really start to see, okay, this could be a really good thing. And I mean, it's completely divine that we ended up here. So my parents had a rental property in the Hot Springs Village, and we moved right into the rental property while we figured stuff out. So it was immediately somewhere that we already had community, we already had relationship, and then they just kind of rooted here and are still, in the area. So it literally uprooted us, but then it very quickly found somewhere to tie us back to, which I know not everybody got in that situation. So we were very fortunate and very blessed for that. And
there were several families kind of that came up here that followed
the Ralphs,
you guys.
The Ralphs.
Oh, yeah.
Who were our friends in New Orleans, ended up living right down the road, when they settled here as well. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I just remember you launching your senior year, and you just became a real leader. And I don't know if that change allowed you to start taking off, but I think you, at least what I knew of you, settled into became a new guy.
Yeah.
Just really began to grow and mentor people. And I also remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember you kind of struggling to figure out what you wanted to do, who you wanted to be. And I think for people listening, that can be a real struggle for a lot of people. High school, college, even post-college, feeling like I got to know who I am right now.
Yep.
And I wish you would share a little bit of that part of your story, because you went into Regent when you left here. You went into Regent with one thought, and it takes a minute, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And even when you have when I was 13, I was like, director. That's what I want to be.
Okay.
And I pursued that.
You knew that at 13.
So that long.
Okay.
But then, of course, as I feel like a lot of Christians will do if they go to a ministry school, or they go,
I want to be a pastor.
I'm going to be a youth pastor now, right? Yeah, or something that those things come up. Or I'm going to do the video team, or those things. Maybe I can find a way to merge the two. And those are all thoughts and processes that happen. That's what those experiences are for, because they help you to really fine tune what it is you want to do. But I mean, even when I got to Regent, there was like a semester before I really got into my major, when you're doing all your gen eds and stuff, and I'm, starting to burn out. I'm like, why am I doing all this busy work, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, maybe I'll teach American history, because I was really into American history at that point.
I would have loved to have seen you as an American history teacher.
Right. These are the thoughts that come around. It's but then
that's good. That's so natural for people listening to know.
Yeah.
That's what runs through people. Here's someone that's got it figured out. You're someone right now that's got it figured out.
Right.
But it was difficult.
Yeah. And you have, there's always doubts or, questioning. And that's what, if something is truly what you're going to do or you're going to pursue, it can hold up to those questions. It can hold up to those doubts, So it's natural and it's good to question those things. And then, hopefully what wills out is what you're meant to be doing. If not, then those thoughts and doubts will probably still be there. So, once I got to my senior year of Regent, so I came in because I did Applied Life. I came in a little bit behind the normal. I was 2 years behind the normal 4-year college. So my friends were coming in who I connected with, who were in my film classes and stuff, were either a year or 2 years ahead of me. So because of doing Applied Life, which I will say Regent was a cakewalk academically compared to,
right.
To
I've heard
Applied
a lot
Life.
of people say that.
And that's, I'll never forget doing my Romans final for you, and you walk in with a stack of loose leaf paper and go write on each chapter, and we sit there for 4 hours writing a summary of every chapter of Romans. Yeah. You didn't do that at Regent, right? So
in my defense, that's what was done to me.
Right.
I just did what was done to me.
And I would like to say that I got an A-, which was the second highest grade. So
that's pretty good.
I was close. I was close.
Good.
But I don't know.
That's awesome.
I would like to discuss why it was not an A, but
it was personal. It was just a personal attack on your character. Yeah.
But another way that prepared, me for getting to Regent. But once I pushed through my gen eds very quickly at Regent, just because I was in the academic mode coming out of Applied Life. So I just wanted to knock everything out. So when I got to my junior year, I had already done my senior project. I already wrote my senior film. I got selected for my script to write and direct for the Regent Endowed film, where they give money and you actually get to produce like something they're going to show in film festivals and things like that. So I had really kind of finished my college career at my junior year, and I had some like basic film, so I had to go back and do script writing still, even though I had already like written multiple scripts,
Sure.
And so my senioritis was really, really bad. We had gotten married that summer, so I still had, So Meg was pregnant, so like we had we had the 5-year plan that ended up being a honeymoon baby.
Right.
So
okay.
yeah.
You were so done with college.
So I was so done with, like I had, so this is how bad it got is for my script writing class, I just submitted the script that had already been selected, right?
Okay.
So I was like, already done it, boom. So I clashed, and I was also working. So I was working in the mailroom on campus, and I was doing freelance film projects on the side. So I, by the skin of my teeth, because I clashed with my professor, had a 64.5 in my script writing class. So I had to go petition to get the roundup.
Okay.
And he would not give it to me. So then I had to go to the dean, who I was friends with and had just spent Thanksgiving with, and said, Norm, do you mind just pushing this through so I can graduate? He's not the dean there anymore, so I don't think he can get in trouble.
Okay, good. Okay, all right.
I won't give his last name.
Okay.
No. But, that's how bad my senioritis was at that point. Because life was, I was like, one way or the other, life is moving forward at this point.
Right.
And I had already decided I'm going to do photography. So I was like, I want to graduate.
Okay.
I just want to be done.
Right.
Yeah. Photo. My wife is whispering something to me.
Yep.
One more time. Our wedding photos is a great. So
Okay.
So the catalyst into wedding photography.
Yeah, like how'd you get there? Yeah.
Yeah. We got married in between my junior and senior year in August, and we wanted to be married before the school semester started.
Sure.
So we planned our wedding. So we got married really fast. We barely dated, but we had known each other for a little over 2 years at that point.
You'd been friends.
We'd been friends.
Right.
And
Meg
Meg
is almost like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Meg
you knew her.
Meg basically, so we dated for 2 weeks, and then she broke up with me, and then we were friends for like a year and a half after that, because she was like, I don't do gray area when it comes to this. So unless this is going to move faster, we should just not date, but we can still be friends.
Okay.
So I always say that I dated her for a year and a half until she dated me, and then we got engaged like 3 months later, and then we got married 3 months after that. So we did a very fast wedding out of state,
Sure.
So it was very quick. So we just kind of hired whoever. We didn't know anything, like if we knew then what we know now, right? So we had an awful wedding experience. Not wedding experience, wedding photography experience.
No, the wedding
was great.
You love each other.
Love each other.
That's not the
Things
issue.
are good.
Right.
But our wedding photography experience was not great. And that's because we just didn't know what we were looking for. And that's kind of what pushed us into wedding photography. We said, well, if this guy can charge X amount of money and do an awful job, then I think we can make a living doing a great job. So that, right?
That's good deduction.
Right? Good deduction.
Right.
So yes, A plus B equals C.
But I love that because it's hard telling someone who doesn't know what they want to do that you keep moving forward and it's going to happen. You're just not ready for it yet.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And God's sitting there going like, just keep moving forward. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that experience happens, and all of a sudden the door opens. Like no one could have looked at you and said, "Hey, y'all need to get married, and then y'all are gonna then you're gonna figure out what's gonna happen." You'd be like, "What? What?" You just had to keep moving forward, trust God, keep growing, keep having these experiences. And sometimes you're weeding things out.
Yeah.
Okay, I was 13. I want to be a videographer, right? Mm-hmm. And it took you all the way till your senior year to go, nope.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
and
you
to
even
be
had
okay
success,
with that, right?
You even had success. I remember your parents, just so you know, when you were off, your parents were showing your video, which I want you to share that one as the trophy.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times
that Meg was in. Meg was the main. Yeah. So the ratio, which
if
this is not the most
Karen and Randy showed that
Yeah.
So many times. Hey, look what Jordan did. Look what Jordan did.
I still have a copy with my Best Director trophy in my office.
See?
the pinnacle of my filmmaking career.
I thought it was cool too. No, I was impressed.
And that's, that was, I guess, like the peak of and that was my junior year. And then it was like, okay, that was a lot of fun. And I figured out, because I did one corporate gig as a videographer, right? And it was for Hobart Foods. It's a Fortune 500 company. And it was a really good gig, and it paid for all my gear to then go and do photography. So on one hand, it was a really great gig, but the experience of it was, I don't think I'm made to be in this world where if I want to have the family job and I don't want to go to California and I don't want to go to New York and I don't want to live the set life, this is my other option. It's just hard for me. I like making films with my friends. I like making it with people that I enjoy working with. I do not enjoy being hired by non-creatives to do something creative to then be micromanaged by those non-creatives. And I was just like, that is for some people, that is not for me. It makes good money, but it will kill me on the inside. So photography became the sole focus after that. So yeah, with Regent, I kind of wrapped everything up in my junior year. It was really great. I mean, I love, those are some of my favorite memories and experiences. And I love that season of life, but seasons come and go.
Sure.
And just tying all the different steps and twists and turns of life together. Alan Sargent once told me, you make plans for life, and then you have to be okay when God changes them.
Wow.
So you make plan A.
That's good.
And if God brings up plan B, then you have to be okay with that. And that has always stuck with me, where you can't be still, because when you're still, you don't grow. So if you're stagnant, there's no movement, there's no growth. That's the worst place to be. So if you don't know what to do what you think is best. But when God alters that plan, be open to it.
That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to hear when you don't know the plan.
Yeah.
But it's the honest truth.
Yep.
You have to just keep moving
take
forward.
the first step.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because those steps are growing you toward that final step. You don't see it. You don't understand it. You don't feel it. The one thing that I say constantly, and I'm sure my staff is going to get tired of hearing this, but when you're headed up, when you're going somewhere, you can't see where you're going. But you can always turn around and see where God is taking you from.
Yeah.
And the only time you can see where you're going is when you're going downhill. Yeah. So that's not good.
Right. You don't want that view.
You don't want that.
Yeah.
But when you're going up, I can't see it, but I'm trusting that as I keep climbing, and I look back and I can have the faith that as I look back, he's done that so far. Yeah. So I'm heading in the right direction, right? And that's what you were.
Yep. Yeah, and sometimes you feel like it's a detour, and you might look back and your path is zigzagging, and sometimes there's some backstepping. If you're climbing, great analogy, right? If you're climbing a mountain,
that's it.
Sometimes you can't go straight up. You have to sidestep to find the next foothold.
Yep.
And, that's sometimes you got to go down and to the right to go back up, and that's,
Well, and for you, it would have been easy. Meg was telling me earlier that her friends went to Brook Hill. Mm-hmm. Yes. Where's Meg from?
So Meg is originally from Florida.
So here's Meg from Florida.
Mm-hmm. And then her parents moved them back to Illinois when she was around 7. That's where her parents had grown up, in the Crystal Lake area up in the northwest suburbs. So she did all of all of her middle school, high school years. And
that's where her friends from Brook Hill.
Yeah, so
she didn't go to Brook Hill.
She never went to Brook Hill.
But they did.
But she had friends who went to Brook Hill. One of her friends growing up was one of my friends at camp, Ashley Atkinson. And she would, every summer, Ashley would go off to, I'm going to go work this camp in Arkansas, which if you live in the northwest suburbs of Illinois, you're like, Arkansas, what's it? Where are you going? What's in Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere, right?
Right.
And so she'd go off and come back, and then when we, the magic of Facebook,
right?
She noticed we had mutual friends, Ashley Atkinson, and so she asked Ashley, "How do you know Jordan?" And then this whole thing, and it's cool because we actually ended up getting married at the church that her dad was the head pastor at, and it's just those connections, throughout different. It's really pretty crazy, like even to that extent,
right?
That
but
there's still a
looking
connection.
at it now, you think, well, God, why didn't you just have Ashley invite Meg to
Right.
Brook Hill
Why
and us
didn't Meg
meet
just,
at Brook Hill?
Yeah, just go to camp.
Right. Why did we have to go to Regent, meet there?
Yeah. It's a really roundabout way.
Right. Well, it's because you weren't ready yet.
I was going to say, well, it's because I don't know if she would have been attracted to
no way.
high school
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, high school Jordan.
Yeah.
This is not high school Jordan. It's a different Jordan.
It's a different.
but think about it. When you're in high school, you're in college, you're sitting here praying, God, bring me this person, and he's like, I can't.
Yeah, you don't want me to yet. Yeah,
it
trust
won't work out if I do that now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
And trusting and waiting.
Yep,
and
that is very hard. That is, the hardest thing you probably do in life is to trust and wait. Yeah.
And you never stop doing that. So I'm not acting like this is a high school and college thing.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
This is an adult thing, professionally, parenting, God, what's the next stage?
Yep.
But we have these little micro moments of, okay, I trusted and waited here, and look, that had success. And why am I struggling with trusting and waiting here? Because if I look back, it worked, but that's it.
And I'd say even as a parent now, trusting and waiting can be even harder. So, I mean, the last 3 years being in events and, in a state that locked down a little bit harder than some of the other states, it was really hard to trust and wait and to not panic and say, we need to do something different. Or, we had to really trust, because I felt in my heart that we needed to stay with the business that we had built and figure out a way to push through and to, keep it alive and use it as an opportunity to bring growth, and plant some seeds. So when things reopened and when everything came back, and it's taken, I mean, really this year is the first year that things will be quote unquote back to normal for us.
Wow.
In terms of revenue and in terms of consistency. So it's taken 3 years to get back there.
Wow.
Which, and
how difficult is that?
Yeah. And, so it's one thing when you're just you, or even when it's just you and one other person, but once you have kids in the mix, the panic sets in a little bit harder of, I can get by on ramen noodle and tuna by myself, but I'm not going to, I can't force my kids to eat junk food and,
right. So as you're going through that, how many times do you start to question, okay, God, are you moving us into something different? Do I just need to go get a job?
Right.
I mean,
and
what I mean?
What's the responsible thing to do? What's
the adult thing
what's the adult thing to do? It's not necessarily what I want to do. Or am I being selfish because I don't want, am I holding on to this because I'm selfish and I don't want to do something different? Or is this because there's something ahead that we don't see yet? And that is the hardest place to be, I'd say, as a parent, in the last 3 years. That was, I think in general, I'm a very stress-free person. I handle stress very, very well.
You are. Yeah.
I don't necessarily, one of the things that was Steven Sexton, shout out to you. Nothing's ever a crisis is what he really instilled in me as a counselor. So when there is something that comes up, you don't run around like a chicken with your head cut off, like, oh my gosh, we have to be calm, be cool, think about it, think of a solution, be active, be realistic about what the reality of the situation is, but don't run. If you think it's a crisis, then it will become a crisis.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So good. I don't know. I would encourage you to listen to a similar podcast that we had. I don't know if you remember Kyle Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. Big Houston Astros fan.
Yes. So shout out to Kyle. But they were in the same place when they were in Florida. He was a mascot there. He got let go. And they looked at each other and said, maybe this is not for us. Maybe God's calling us to something different. Yeah. And what they did was they really locked into their church.
Yeah.
And they really locked into the Lord.
Yep.
And it was through that moment that God opened it. And so basically Kyle had laid it down.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm ready to go into something different, even though this has been my dream.
Yeah.
And here you are in this moment of, and I think it's just God builds so much in us in those moments.
It is. I mean, that's where you get put to the fire and you find out, And that's something that we talk about, Meg and I, and especially in those moments of like, what does it mean when God says life and life more abundant? And sometimes I feel like we associate that with status or wealth or achievement. And that's not necessarily what it means. Right. If anything, I feel like it means more in the hardships of saying you might go through suffering, you might go through hardship, but my goodness, my righteousness, my joy is what makes you have that life abundant in spite of the hardships of life sometimes. Because I think, and I know when I was, newer in my Christianity, you'd be like, well, why don't you just fix this for me? And he's like, well, I can't fix that for you because I need you to learn how to fix it for yourself because it will produce something greater in you. And those are the things that produce probably the greatest, the highs and the lows of the valley, right?
Yep.
The mountaintops and the valleys. And the valley is where the fruit, you have to go down into the valley to be able to go back up to the mountaintop because that's where the fruit grows. The fruit grows in the valley. Yeah.
God, it's so good and it's so true. You hate going through it, but you love the result of it.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Y'all are better for it today, and things are all good today.
Yeah.
But it wasn't yesterday.
It was not. No.
But it's cool when the two of you share your story to others around you because you never know who's going through that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I hope that people are who are listening right now, that this is encouraging to them because even though you might be in the mountaintop right now, they might be in the valley.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't quit.
Yep.
Don't quit.
Keep taking those steps.
That's my biggest, honestly, to this generation and to people today, mental health and suicide and things are just so huge today. And it's like, don't quit. Keep going. Fake it till you make it. Keep moving forward. God's growing something in there. He's doing something in you. Trust it. It's going to happen. You don't see it now, right? I mean, that's my biggest thing right now because I think, through 2020, like you were talking about, I mean, it magnified in people's lives because they kind of got still and it just panicked. And,
yeah. It took away a lot of security that people, built up for themselves and thought, we would joke and what we do, the joke is always like, well, it's a recession-proof industry because people are always going to get married. Right. Well, what happens when something comes around that it's not a recession, but it's a major event and, well, People aren't getting married.
No, they stop dating, stop getting married. They're just in their house.
We did not see that coming, and those are the times that, I mean, you need the life more abundant more than ever, and we look back on 2020 and while there were nights where you're in the fetal position, try to figure out what's going on, but there's also some of the best memories because we were together so much more because we weren't, busy with what life makes you busy with.
That's right.
And we have some of the best memories with our daughters of just being together, doing simple things in the backyard, playing with the sprinkler, getting time that we normally didn't get because we work the hardest in the summertime because of where we live. Not a lot of people get married in February where we live because it's negative 15 degrees. So our busiest season is between May and November. And that's summertime, so sometimes it's a real struggle for me to get to take those moments to just be. And we got to do that. And it was, some of the best moments that we've been able to have in a really long time. And so those are the fruit that you get even in those hardships.
Yeah, because it definitely reminded us all of what's more important.
Exactly.
And it's each other.
Yeah.
I called my friends more than I ever had.
Right. Yeah. Makes you reconnect.
So much that Mitchell Glass, he asked me, he said, are we dating? You're calling me more than my wife is, But he's a doctor. And I was like, hey, man, you got to advise me on this. I don't know what to do. I need to know. And I would call him the next day and say, what do you know today? And he's like, same as yesterday. Don't call me.
Don't call me for a week.
That's right. That's exactly right. Don't call me. I'll
Check
call
back
you.
In. Yeah.
That's right. So, but yeah, it just taught us what's important, and then you build off that now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm building back, but I'm keeping what's important.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the middle of this thing.
Yep.
So, God, so good, Jordan. So good, man. I love what you're doing. Let me ask you this: what would it have been like? When you were a counselor, there was no media team. What would it have been like for you had you had this kind of opportunity? Because we have more opportunities on staff now than we ever had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of this? You and Meg are professionals. You be the chef that comes in critiques our kitchen here. No. What do you think?
Critiques. I will say this just right off the bat. I think it's amazing that you have all the different team opportunities because it lets people walk in giftings. So I did how many you do? 2 years junior counselor?
Typically,
I think I was 2 years JC, 1 year AC, or maybe one.
So once you were up here, you did an AC. Maybe after you were up here, right?
Yeah. So I only went as far as AC. But that's because I like to be more in the background. For all our Enneagram people, I'm a 9. I don't, My
wife's a 9. That's awesome. 9s are cool. That's what we're in the triad. I'm a 3.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is, for me, my personality, and I'm more of an introvert. I'm an extroverted introvert. I like to, when I'm engaged, but if I don't get my recharge, I burn out. And for camp, being a senior counselor, it's a calling of you're on 24/7. So I think I never saw that as like where I wanted to be. I loved being in AC because you floated, you did behind the scenes things, you got to be with the kids, but you also got to take a break, to go set up Carnival Island or whatever else was going on. So I would be able to decompress. So that was kind of my lane because of the options at the time. That was the best one. But when it came time to, do I want to be a senior counselor? It was the same thing when I jumped over to High Point. I was with the campers a lot, but I was also behind the scenes. I was coordinating things. I was setting up the next thing to happen. So that was more my jam. Yeah. But if there was an option to do the video team or photography or anything like that and still get to be a part of the, what makes Brook Hill so special, but get to capture that would have really spoken to me. So the fact that you guys have built out different veins for different callings, I think is amazing. And just the quality that you guys are doing. We love going through the Instagram account. We love going on SmugMug. As a parent, being able to see that, and especially for my wife who never came to Brook Hill, doesn't have an idea of what I'm talking about when I talk about Big Lake or Fun Swim or go-karts, to be able to get a visual of that now is really, really amazing. And then for the alumni who are like, it's like nostalgia just slapping you in the face and you're like, this is the greatest, to be able to see that and see your kid doing, right. I was driving that same go-kart track, and I was in Fun Swim. I went down the zip line. I did. Now the slide's gone, which is probably a good thing, but, for safety reasons. Yeah. But, it's amazing to see those things and to see what's changed, to be able to see like the guys' night, the girls' night photos from last night. Like that's so much fun. I love that. Yeah. And I want to say, I might be wrong. Was that a 2-week thing at one point? It was just a 2-week thing.
That's all it was. And we were looking to revamp one of the nights.
Right.
We were like, we do this awesome thing at 2 week. Why don't we bring that into the 1 week? But how do we repackage that?
Yeah. 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 So I think the vision and the growth that you guys have had it's been, really amazing to see. And, there's always been the nostalgia for the dangerous 90s and the, early 2000s. But,
Right, sure.
As a parent now, I appreciate the safety precautions.
We wear helmets now.
The trampolines don't have holes on the side of them where you can...
No. We only do trampolines over water now.
Right, only over water. That's good. That's a good spot to have them. But I think the media aspect of stuff is fantastic, and it's a way for the campers, because I would also go home and try to explain it to my friends to be able to say this is what it is, and then be able to show that, which is good for getting more kids to come, but it's also good for the campers to be able to this is what, if Ashley could have just showed you a video, and say, this is what I was doing. Right. Maybe you would have come, you would have met me and said, you know what, let's wait till college.
I'll see you at Regent.
Oh, yeah. So we had this great idea. Okay. So you need a week. How many weeks are we doing now? Are we
7 sessions, 8 weeks?
7 sessions. Yeah. Okay. So you need session 8 for alumni.
Okay. Let's go. Let's go.
And we would sign up. But they can also bring their spouses.
I love that. Well, I will tell you, we are doing a little mini reunion October 7th. Oh, I don't know if you know about this, so we could shamelessly plug this.
Yes, let's plug it.
So it's called the Legacy Dinner. So it's a 3-part extravaganza.
Oh, Mike mentioned this to me, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Legacy Dinner, which means the legacy part is we want to honor a legacy person. Hetty is numero uno, right?
Head legacy.
She's the head legacy.
Yes.
So we're going to start with her. But it's also a reunion.
Okay.
And then it's also a fundraiser for the BCF, the Brook Hill Children's Fund, which I don't know if you know about the Brook Hill Children's Fund. They did 40 scholarships this year.
Wow.
40 scholarships where they basically paid $480, almost $500.
Yeah.
So it only cost somebody $400 to come to camp.
Yes.
And so that was awesome, which we didn't even have the money for that. And we had people step up and say, we're not cutting anyone. And
That's
awesome. And I was like, whoa, okay.
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 That's amazing.
Anyway, just really cool. So if that ever fits into your plans,
that could be the beginning steps to a alumni.
That's right.
It could be a long weekend, like a turkey day.
That's right. There we go.
Do the campers really need turkey day? I think the alumni need turkey day.
We could talk about that. I like that.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, but I love the different areas, which we're going to show y'all. Y'all are going to get a tour because you're here doing a podcast when camp's going on. And this will drop during the summer. But we want to show you around because here's what I like. I felt like before it was like, okay, unless you're this wild, crazy JC that fits into the cabin, we don't have a place for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Unless you happen to want to help in first aid. That was about it.
Which at that point, I mean, I don't know if we do now, but I don't think we really had any male first aid people.
Nope.
So that
you're
wasn't
out.
an option if
So
you're a
out.
guy. So
yep, sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but now there's so many places of, look, I feel called here. I love this place. I want to give back.
Yep.
How can I give back? Okay. What are your giftings? And so now really the JC process and even AC process is try on different areas, see what fits.
Yep.
And if you want to be here, you feel like God's calling you, let's try and get you in those places.
Yep.
No matter what your personality is or your giftings or whatever. And we've also tried to, even with the cabin, you don't have to be wild and crazy. You may be chill. Mm-hmm. Kids are chill too.
Yes. Well, I would say Abigail, our daughter who's here, she is very introverted and she will get nervous or anxious if there's too much.
Sure.
And, that was a little bit because she's coming, her cousins are here. So she has a little support group.
Sure.
But also she's, I want to say, one or 2 years past when she could have originally come, just because we wanted to, kind of wait and make sure she's ready. And I'm just remembering when I was, a camper, it was like a 10 all the time, which was awesome in its own right. But for my personality, that worked.
That's right.
But for her personality, I was a little concerned of that could be overwhelming. So it's nice. And to just know, go talk to your counselor if you're feeling overwhelmed, to be able to have that trust and to say, I know the caliber of counselors that were in my life. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully I was when I was a counselor. I'm going to trust that same standard is here.
Absolutely.
So, be open with your counselor, go talk to them. Nobody's here to say, oh, just suck it up and get in there and be something you're not,
That's right.
and be excited when you're terrified on the inside because of everything that's going on. So yeah, it's for her, it's a really big step and I'm really proud of her for taking it. And I couldn't think of a better spot or place for her to do that and,
I love that.
And to be safe and to have, somewhere that I know the counselors are going to be excellent.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. You got two more things for you.
Okay.
First off, y'all's the wedding business is this a regional area only? I'm assuming is it
mostly,
for that?
Yeah,
mostly yes.
So I did one wedding in Punta Cana. So I had a couple who
that's not in Chicago.
Yeah, that's not in Chicago. That is that is in Punta Cana.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
next to Haiti.
Okay.
And so I did my one destination wedding. This was 2014,
okay.
And it just wasn't the time away wasn't for me. So I was like, cool, check it off the list.
Okay.
I did it, checked it out, but we keep it mostly between Wisconsin and Illinois and straddle that border.
But let's say someone is in that area.
Yeah.
How would they find you?
Oh, Jordan Imhoff Photography.
Jordan.com. ImhoffPhotography.com.
Jordan Imhoff Photography on Instagram or Facebook. So just put in Jordan Imhoff Photography in a search engine and it should pop up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing would be, what do you feel like your experience at Brook Hill built in you? What would you be the things, whether it was your counselor experience, camper experience, what do you think it built in you that maybe helps you today?
Perseverance would probably be number one. Of perseverance and discernment, I think would be two, which I think are kind of go hand in hand. It's one thing to persevere and not know where you're going. It's another thing to persevere and trust in that the Holy Spirit is going to lead you in the right direction. So those kind of going hand in hand together, because there's just like Katrina on, and even before Katrina, there's just a lot of uncertainty, and that is what it is to be a teenager. That is what it is to be in middle school, and honestly, that's what it is to be an adult sometimes. And just being able to say, okay, I'm not exactly sure what in this moment everything means, and being able to trust and push through a season. And even, as much as you might love one season, a lot of times there will be a quiet season before a season of excitement or growth or whatever, and you have to be able to be content. Let's go back. I'm going to go with contentment.
Okay.
So being content in all seasons. Again, with 2020 and everything that happened, finding contentment in the season that you're in, even though you feel like something that you built for 8 years with our business could be on the chopping block. Finding contentment when things are at an all-time high and we can travel and we can go and we can do, because even in those seasons, you can lose sight of what's important and you might not be content because you want more, so being content in every season and trusting that God has his hand on your life and that he's the one directing. So, move forward, take your steps, but be open to his direction, because you'll look back and you'll be pretty amazed where you've been and how you got to where you're at.
Man, so good. Jordan, my friend, alumni, man, I appreciate you. Obviously, very close with your family.
Yeah.
Love the Imhoffs, incredible family, and man, I'm just grateful that you would spend some time with us today. I loved hanging out. So
I'm grateful you asked me to be on the podcast and come do this, because if there's anything in life that's fun to talk about to most past Brook Hillers, it is Brook Hill. So,
okay, let's go. All right, life, legacy, and leadership. Jordan Imhoff. Thank you.